Let us start this lecture with a thought process from Rudyard Kipling, who says, "Gold is for mistress, silver for the maid, copper for the craftsman cunning at his trade. Good said the baron sitting in the hall, but iron, cold iron is master of them all." So, this is a beautiful poem written by Rudyard Kipling, who was talked about iron, and which is the master of all the metals that we have discussed till now. We have discussed lot of metals in ancient India which were being used, and today we will be discussing about iron making in ancient India. So, a question might be coming to your mind, why is iron important for our life? If you look at, iron is one of the most widely used metals, accounting for around 95% worldwide of metal production at this moment. And why it is being used very profusely? Because of fact that it is having very low cost with high strength. Therefore, it is being used profusely in engineering applications, even in our day to day life, like if you look at alpine, safety pin, nail, hammer, lot of other places we do use in our day to day life apart from the engineering application. But engineering application, some of the examples I am just giving you, not all, that is machinery, automobiles, ships, engineering components, building materials, and several of them. So, therefore, that is very important. And if you look at in India, we are having iron production which is increasing. This is the blue lines, it is in million tons. Of course, 2013 people are escalating it to higher level, in the sense people are thinking of something around maybe 270 million tons per year they want to produce. And earlier days, of course, iron ores were being exported, but once we started enhancing our production and also utilization in the local markets, then naturally the oil export, ore export, iron ore exports have been decreasing trend. That is a good thing. Instead of selling these iron ores in a very low value, you can have a product, add the value to this iron, and then you can sell it. That is the better way than what I remember when I was a kid. I am in Odisha, like we were selling this iron to Japan, iron ores to Japan, not iron, at a throwaway price. So, it is good that we are doing, and it is not that currently iron being used profusely, but irons also were used in ancient time. Let us look at the iron ore, which is basically a mixture of rocks and iron oxide predominantly, but some other metal impurities might be there. It can have different colors, like dark gray, bright yellow, or deep purple to rusty red, and of course, from this color one can identify the iron ores, different kinds. Some of the iron ores which are available in India are magnetite, hematite, limonite, and siderites. But hematite is being predominantly available in our country, which is color is shown in this diagram, and which corresponding to basically rusty red kind of things. And of course, the magnetite is little different than that, it is having more shining, and magnetite is the ore which can attract the iron because it is having magnetic properties. So, if you look at iron ore deposits, you can find various parts starting from the south side to the all regions in the eastern side, in the even the middle of India, MP, and even Maharashtra and Gujarat, and then even West Bengal, Jharkhand, several areas. Most of the parts of India except few places like Gangetic plains and then Himalayan region, like India is having a large deposits which are scattered around across the country. So, let us look at now the how the iron were being used in ancient India. If you go to Harappan period, people couldn't find much use of irons. However, during Vedic periods which span around something 1500 to 500 BC, and people were using iron for household, agriculture, tools, buildings, even tools, and iron and sword and daggers, all those things were basically made of iron at that time. And a lot of evidence are being found out, that is Lodhal. You might be remembering that Lodhal, which is located in Gujarat, is a part of Harappan civilization. Ahar in UP and Gufkral in the Kashmir valley, Antanji-Khera in UP, Halur in Karnataka. Of course, in Halur in Karnataka, around something 1000 BC, people have found out that iron being used, and Tinnevel in South India around 550 BC. Beside this, you can find during this Mauryan kingdom and after that Kanishka kind of things like Chandragupta, Asoka and King Hubisca, that periods people were using the iron swords, daggers, agriculture tools, coins, clamps and several other things they were using. During 1 to 100 CE, iron spearheads, nails, of course, apart from the other things what are being described earlier like swords, dagger and coins and clamps, their evidence is being found out in Piprawa in UP region. And of course, you people will be very much aware about Restless iron pillar, which is located now in New Delhi. Earlier it was there, that belongs to something 500 CE. And 600 1200 CE, lot of iron being used in various places, but most remarkable is the iron beams which are used in temples of Konark, Puri and Bhubaneswar you will find. And of course, after 1200 and then till 1800s, apart from other day to day equipments and tools and then other items, the iron were profusely used for making iron guns and cannons in a big way. Those evidence are being found in Tanjore, Bijapur, Muzaffarnagar and several other places, which I will be discussing about them, some of them. Let us look at where people found these irons, and they in the left hand side it is shown the various places, and here it is the years, and this side is basically, if you look at, this is CE and this side is BCE, before Common Era and after Common Era. So, if you look at, they got the iron in this pearl, as I told, Ahar, Loeban and other places, and even Antanji-Khera and Noha in Sonpur, Prakash. There are several places, some of them I am just mentioning so that you can keep in mind. Hastinapur, which is a mythological city that is nearby New Delhi, and Kausambi, Rajghat, Rupar and Ujjain, Rajgiri, Taxila, and of course, the Delhi pillars and Konark beams, like you can see. That means people started using around something maybe 1300 BC or little bit more, because this is the error bar which is shown, that this can be from this. For example, if I take about this thing, then this will be basically from 1400 to 1200, that range. It cannot be that exact. So, that people have found out, and there is a clear evidence that Indians were using irons profusely starting from something around 1300 BC onwards. And during Vedic period, you can look at the evidence in the Vedas like Rig Vedas and Athar Vedas, other things. like the word is, which is known as iron basically, is used in several times in Rig Veda and other Vedas, and word ayod masta is basically the iron tusk, and ayojala is iron nets. If you look at if this is the true, then like question arises how they are making that iron nets. And ayasanayana ankina, that is iron hooks, were used several places in Atharvaveda, and only we will consider two slokas just to look at how this iron word is being used in this sloka from Atharvaveda, that is homage be to thee, O Nirtri, thou of keen keenness, unfasten the blunt fetters of iron. So, if you look at that means they were using this iron, therefore, they will be knowing the strongness of the iron. And if you look at this is the ayasmeya, this is the word which is corresponding to the iron. Thou wast bound here it an iron post bridled with death that are 1,000. And this is this sloka is basically from Atharvaveda also. And if you look at the earliest iron age sites in South India is located in Halur in Karnataka and Adi Chanalur in Tamil Nadu, which dates back to the around 1000 BC. And iron in the epic periods, if you look at which is around something 500 BC to 100 BC, I have taken a sloka from Manusmriti, and again this is Aya means basically the iron, and it says Mani Mukta Pravaranang Tamrasya Rajatasya Cha Ayang Kanswaparanang Cha Dwadasang Kana Nata. So, you can see that even again iron being used here. Of course, for this like people have found out evidence by the from the excavated items. And let us look at evidence of iron uses in ancient India from Arthashastra by Chanakya, which is around 300 BC. And he has described various weapons, namely swords, arrows, satagni. Satagni means killer of hundreds. I do not know how they were doing that, that is one has to find out. And axes, spades, breastplates, armors extra, which these items he has mentioned in his text, and which are made of iron, and this is being taken Arthashastra by Chanakya, edited by R. Samsastri. This text not only talks about the uses of irons, also talked about how one can really mine it and what is to be done, and there is a very clear cut that there is a system of making, training the people how to mine and also the manage the mining process and other thing. For example, what the sloka I have taken from R. Samsastri from here, this sloka indicates, like if you look at Akara Dhaksha means superintendent of mines should make trial borings with the help of trained men who are well versed in the knowledge of metals. That means there was also trained people at that time who must be used for making a trial boring before mining, and there is also superintendent of mines, that what he has talked about. And he should be adept in examination of precious metal. That means superintendent of the mines should have a knowledge about the precious metals, whether it is a right or wrong, and he should be provided with necessary apparatus, make borings in those places where presence of slag, charcoal, ashes and others indicating previous smelting operations in those places, either in the plains or at the foot of mountains. And they can identify the place of mining by the color or the smell of soils and ores, so that you can find out whether which metal is there. That means there were procedures of course, in terms of very what you call way of color and smells, and they could identify where the mine is located, and they could bore those things and find out whether it is viable or not to have digging the mines. And in this text, description about ores, mines of gold, silver, copper, iron, tin and precious stones are being mentioned. And as I told earlier that the ores of iron can have color of orange, faint red or red like vermilion, and this was very predominant because this is refers to the brown and red iron ore, that is hematite, found abundantly in our country. So, let us look at some of these prehistoric antiquities in Tenne Valley, Tamil Nadu, like these I have shown here, which is iron swords, like these are the big swords, and daggers, these are smaller daggers. This evidence one can find about Pandyan dynasty mentioned in Ashoka inscription in around 250 BC. And these daggers, what people found out from this excavation is that something 8 to 12 inches, and sword is around 2 to 2.5 feet. Not only the sword and dagger, but also the arrows, javelins, lances, iron clamps made of iron were found during the excavations. And it is being claimed by various researchers that these might be the earlier version of wood steel. A question might be coming to your mind, what is wood steel? We will be discussing little bit about it, and wood steel is a very advanced steel as of now, and it is having a super plasticity property, and we will be discussing little bit about it later on. And iron clamps were found at Bodh Gaya around which is dated back to the 300 BC, and these are the iron clamps I have shown here, which they got from during excavation foundation of temples at Bodh Gaya. And these clamps are basically made of wrought iron. And we know that Ayurveda was flourishing in our country, and so also the surgery. The surgery book is Sushruta Samhita, and surgery was conducted in ancient India, and which we had discussed little bit, but 125 surgical instruments made of iron were being mentioned in the Sushruta Samhita, and some of the pictures I have shown here, which is quite complex, how they are making so minute tools which can be used for surgery. That is a one question really bothering me, and even today it is difficult to manufacture them. So, those manufacturing techniques of course are not available as of now, but one need to find it out how they were doing at that time. And all of us we know about the Restless iron pillar at Delhi, New Delhi, and which is located in the Qutub Minar of New Delhi. And this is the picture what you will get here, and which is located. But it was not established there, it is basically from other places, and the earlier view of this pillar is shown here, which is having a gate, and now it is not there. This pillar was basically made by Chandragupta II around 400 to 413 in the honor of Lord Vishnu on the Mount Vishnupada, or nowadays it is known as Udayagiri, located near the Sanchi and Vidisha, about 50 km from Bhopal. And of course, there is a lot of historical things are there, and people who conquered this place during what we call medieval time, they had brought this iron pillar to the Qutub Minar and erected it. So, beside this you will find there are several other items which I have shown here, and this is a very interesting one, helmet from the wood steel. I have taken this from a book known as Indian Iron by Bala Subramaniam R. and these are the Indian swords which are very famous now, also because of its ductility and also its strength, it is well known, and this is also known as the Damascus sword. This wood steel is being used to protect the body, like these are the body protection gears which were being used earlier days during the war by the warriors. Nowadays, of course, we are getting the bulletproof jackets. Like if you look at these are the ancient bulletproof jackets, and these are made of basically wood steel. Wood steel is an ultra high carbon steel exhibiting properties such as superplasticity and high impact strength, and it qualifies as an advanced material even in modern terminology. So, for this wood steel, if you look at Europeans struggle a lot to find out how Indians were making even during British period, but they were successful later on of making this kind of materials, wood steel. And iron beams, temples at Konark being used, and not only in Konark but also Puri and Bhubaneswar, Odisha, around 640 to 1174 CE. And this is the temple, of course, which is there in this door nearby this place. These iron beams are being used, and it has been claimed that in the entire world, the Indians were the first to use the beam for taking the structural load, and which was a very unique experiment, and they had done it successfully because the load due to the stone will be very, very high, and that could be taken by these iron beams. It is not only this Konark temple they have used. In the garden temple at Puri, number of iron beams at the lintels of door is something 95 people found out. In the same temple, number of iron beams below the pillar plates is around 239. See, it is a large number of beams were being used. People were very much fond of using beams at that time. It looks to me made of iron. How they were making, what will be the dimension, how they will decide it, what will be the cross section, what will be length, all those questions comes to our mind, and but unfortunately not much is data is available as of now. However, one can explore it to find out what are the methodology by which they were designing this. And of course, these are the some of the iron beams I have just shown, which are being photographed during something 1912 and which were lying, and similarly Bloom's-Hewn Konark irons are being shown here, and iron were being used profusely at that time for temple constructions and other things. Let us look at iron pillar at Dhar, which was erected by 11th century Parmar king Bhoj in Malwa region of western Madhya Pradesh. Although there is a controversy, people say that before that also iron pillar was there at Dhar, but now people are accepting that this might be the 11th century. And three of its fragments are located near 15th century at Lat Masjid. Lat meaning in Hindi basically pillar mosque, right, pillar, and of course Masjid is the mosque. These are the pillars which are still lying. That means before this masjid being made, that place a lot of iron pillars might be there. So, let us look at another item of iron pillar at on Mount Ambu in Rajasthan, which was erected around 1412 AD, and its size is 12 feet and 9 inches. Of course, whether it has been made in a single piece and how they have made this trident, all those things one has to look at from manufacturing point of view. It is a very remarkable thing that they had made, and there might be several other iron items which were being lost because it gets corroded. If you look at this during medieval times, lot of guns and cannons were made out of iron. I will just show you some of them. Iron gun at Tanjore, which is a 17th century forge welded iron cannon at Tanjore eastern entrance, and this is a very heavy one, and diameter like quite huge, and so also the length. and cannon at Malike Maidan in Bijapur, which is 4-meter long and 1.5 meter in diameter, weighing around 50 tons. And this gun was brought back from Ahmednagar in the 17th century as a trophy of war, because they won the war, therefore, they will take that gun out, and which was drawn by something 400 oxen and 10 elephants and hundreds of men. To transport basically cannon is not that easy. Even during the war time, people left their cannon because they cannot really transport, it is very heavy. So, there is another gun I am just discussing, Landa case of gun at Bijapur, and it was basically quite huge and around 21 feet 7 inches long, and diameter at the breech is around 4 feet 4 inch. That means, diameter of this gun is outer diameter is around that, whereas the caliber, that is the what you call inner diameter through which the cannon will be passing, is 1 feet 7 inch, and length of the bore is 18 feet 7 inch, and estimated weight around 47 tons. So, if you look at how they are deciding what will be the length, what will be the caliber, and what will be the breech, and then why they were giving a lot of thickness, and what pressure will be developed by that motion because of firing. See, whether they might be doing it by some thumb rule, but one has to look at it, some studies has to be done, and lot of science can be unraveled by that. There is a iron gun at the Gulbarga, and which is being taken this figure in 1913, and there is a iron gun at the Murshidabad. There are several of them in Murshidabad of what you call West Bengal, and this is known as the great iron gun at Murshidabad, called the conqueror of the world, Jahan Kos, they named it, and each gun was having their own name. And let me talk about the chemical composition of iron produced by ancient Indian furnaces. Like if you look at Delhi iron filler is around 0.23 carbon, of course silicon is very less, and phosphorus 0.18, and Bhubaneswar iron beams also in the similar range, but little bit in the higher side 0.45 carbon, and others are trace materials, and there is also chromium and nickel, little bit is there in Bhubaneswar iron. I think they may not be adding this thing, this may be a part of their ore which they couldn't have removed it, and which may be acting as a better one, like from the rusting point of view. The Buster iron X, which is something 0.25 to 0.45 carbon. Question of how they were controlling carbon, whether they were controlling or not, all those questions comes into mind, because the carbon content will be deciding the strength of the iron. Smelting iron from Jabalpur 0.59, this is the recent one, they have conducted some experiment using the ancient procedure, and smelted iron Vishnupur also they have used the ancient procedure, but demonstrated recently the carbon is 0.016 to 0.043. So, if you look at of course, a lot of research has been done by in recent time looking at ancient way of making iron in India. Now, I will be discussing about the classification of iron and its properties in ancient India. The ancient India, the irons are divided basically Kanta iron, Tiksna loha and Munda loha, and the soft iron, which is basically Kanta iron loha, is can again classified as Brahmaka, means very soft magnetic iron, Chumbaka mildly magnetic or stick to iron pieces, and Karsaka, it can attract the iron objects, Dravaka very strong magnetic iron, and Romaka permanent magnet and develop strong magnetic field around it. It may be Ekamukha or Sarvamukha. So, that means they have classified several kinds of magnetic irons, and which is known as soft iron, and Tiksna iron is Khara, develops good cutting edge which breaks on bending, and Sara the softer iron and it has fibrous fracture. Ranala the hard and tough has fibrous fractures. Travata develops good cutting edge. Bajra which is being used in mythology several times, has a good hardening and tempering property. It has bluish color and hard cutting edge, and Kala develops hard cutting edge after blue tempering, and the Munda Loha, which is basically cast iron, and this is Mrudu, soft brittle iron, may be grey cast iron, it has low melting point. Kunda is molted grey iron, Kadara is white cast iron. If you look at the ancient people were having a very sound knowledge about the types of iron and its properties. So, therefore, it is very clear that people were having a good knowledge about iron and iron making, how to use it and other things. With this, I will stop over. In the next lecture, we will be discussing about how iron was being processed from the iron ores in ancient time. Thank you very much.